Jeremiah, before I formed thee, I knew thee. Hello, I'm Kendall Bryan Hunter. I'm author of the book Consider My Servant Job, and this is Come Follow Me, Get to the Point, where I always show up, I always come prepared, we never take roll, and it's bring your own refreshments. Diet 7-Up, zero sugar for Halloween, time of the year where it's just all junk food left and right. Zero sugar works for me. So Jeremiah chapter 1. I think today we'll just cover two chapters. This is get to the point. Jeremiah chapter 1, then Jeremiah 16. One is Jeremiah's call to being a prophet, and this parallels the calls that Christ got, that Enoch, Moses, Isaiah, Abraham skipped over him, also Joseph Smith, and all the other prophets had a similar pattern with them getting called. I'll put links in the comments section. I'll put links to their specific chapters where they talked about it. So I think we're all kind of familiar with that, parallels Isaiah chapter 6 with Isaiah's call. But also the other thing to think about is our calls. How do we know that we're called? Well, we learn about that, one, in our Patriarchal Blessing, but two, with the Endowment. We get a similar pattern that Moses got with the cosmic vision, the history of the planet, and we get the same thing in the Endowment. And so there's a parallel between what the prophets get and what we get with our specific calls. And this includes sisters and also with children. That's just not exclusively a male or a person who holds the priesthood, but everyone gets the same pattern for their calling. So the second thing that's brought up is in the book of Jeremiah. We usually quote Jeremiah, was it verse 5 and 6? I'm sorry, I didn't put that in my notes. I apologize. So, you know what I'm talking about. Jeremiah's call to premortality. That's a interesting aspect to the call, because Joseph Smith taught about foreordination, and like when you read with Isaiah chapter 6, there's the idea that our calls on earth are traced back to the foreordination we got in the premortal existence, but also the premortal existence in general. It's something that sometimes gets died down, but the first presidency made this statement that the idea of premortality gives us a wonderful flood of light upon the otherwise mysterious problem of man's origin. If you have questions about purpose and meaning in life, understand premortality, mortality, and post-mortality, and that will help clear up a lot of things. So that's Jeremiah chapter 1. Jeremiah chapter 2 is, Jeremiah point 2 is Jeremiah 16. First of all, when you read verses 2 through 3, it's interesting to note that Jeremiah wasn't married. And like many of the prophets, like with Isaiah, was commanded to have children as signs, and also with Hosea, his marriage and his children served as signs and were part of the prophetic ministry. However, Jeremiah was a little bit different. He was told specifically not to marry, not to have children, and it's explained in verse 3 of it that it was to be a warning to the people in Israel with the disasters that were coming. Because this is Jeremiah was a contemporary of Nephi, and this is when the big broom hits Jerusalem. This is when the scattering of Israel begins, is during this time. And yeah, that's kind of unusual, and sometimes people stumble over it, as to do with Hosea, why he was called to marry a prostitute, but just pay attention to what's going on, and this is how the Lord operates. The other thing, too, is the verses 15 and 16 about the gathering of Israel and sending forth hunters and fishers of men. We know that's used to be the oldest scripture mastery one, but keep in mind is that there's a reason why that it goes on, and why President Nelson has been emphasizing doing missionary work. We're basically out of the pandemic. Things are sort of living in the new normal now, but we still need to do missionary work and adapt to the current circumstances, but it still needs to go on, plus member missionary work. You got any questions about that? You can get a copy of Preach My Gospel, which is already on the app, and reference that for any questions you have. I'm getting a little bit long at the 4-minute mark, so let's just wrap things up with my usual concluding segment, the Christ Quotient. And this is it. It's the duty of prophets to do the work of Christ. And it's not the duty of prophets to be cultural enablers and to give people permission. You can read about that in the book of 4th Nephi, I think it's verse 27, where they have one of the churches that gets set up among the Nephites is really an inclusive church, and they administer things that were withholding people because of unworthiness. And that's how the world does things. It doesn't care about worthiness. It just cares about inclusion and inclusivity and being seeker-friendly, whereas prophets say, yeah, we have to lay down these laws, and that's part of the standard because we have to do the work of Christ. And the other thing to think about is, how does General Conference draw us closer to Christ? Because drawing closer to Christ, that's the point. Thank you.